Really what we're going to look at today is basically how do we make your arms stronger and how do they tie into the shoulder, because we've talked about the shoulder a lot. So being able to understand what's going on, how all these things tie together, especially when we look at like the forearm, really there's only so many movements we can do for your arms. It's all just going to be based on what the position of your shoulder is and then what the position of your hand is. Okay, so real quick overview. We have your shoulder, we're just going to go front of the arm. So biceps, there's two of them. Alright, so on the outside you have a long head of the bicep. So if you actually look at it when we slice open the arm, the muscle itself is shorter, but the tendon that runs up through, basically it's called the bicipital groove, so a little notch in the top of your humerus, and goes all the way back to the top of your shoulder blade. The short head goes, it's a little bit longer muscle but shorter tendon, and attaches to the acromion process up here. Underneath both of those, there's something called your oh gosh, I about misnamed it. It's the Corgo Brachialis. It's part of your arm. If Jim reaches his arm up, so reach your arm out to me, hand up, right hand, turn your hand up. So basically, it's this guy right in here, all right? And it's basically responsible for raising your shoulder up in front of you, all right? Obviously then, our bicep attaches down in here. It's attaching on the inside of your ulna, okay? So if we look at your forearm here, so go hand up, just, okay? Right here, we have a radius that comes along the side of your arm. Then we have your ulna. Your ulna is actually the smaller bone. If he turns his hand over, you can start to see the position change. So the radius here runs alongside all the way down towards the thumb. All right? When we look at the back side, so turn around. Back side of the arm, most things, if you know bi and tri, all of a sudden you start to realize, oh, 2 and 3. So we have 3 different tricep muscles. So you basically, same thing, have a long and a short head that attach on the inside of that shoulder blade, and then up again against like the top of the humerus and then the acromion process. All right. Where we get really funky is that we got this little guy down here. This is called your Anconeus. It's very, very tiny, but you can make it, like if you straighten your arm all the way out, you can kind of see it pop out. Oh, you're kind of small, right? Don't worry, I'll show you how to make it bigger. Alright? But it attaches there to the other side of your radius, so it's going to finish off that tricep extension. Okay? So face them again, right? Because the majority at least are there. So when we look at movements of the arm, obviously we have flexion, so if he bends his elbow, that's flexion. If he goes the other way, extension. We already talked about shoulder, right? So flexion is out in front, extension is behind. That's what, yeah, that still works. Same thing. Okay? His hand faces up, puts his hand facing up like you're holding a cup of soup. Supination, as he turns it over, that's pronation, okay? So when we look at strengthening the arm, and then also having it tie into how we strengthen our shoulder, the one big thing we're gonna look at is shoulder position. So if he's in this neutral position, we basically look at, we're gonna start with the bicep and the tricep here. We're basically, this neutral position, we're just at a normal length, all right? Almost like what we consider like medium, all right? So if we're right here, we're gonna be in a medium length position, because that muscle and that tendon, right? That long head of the bicep tendon isn't fully stretched out, okay? It's at a normal length. If he were to then raise his arm out in front in flexion, all right? Now we've got a lengthened position with the tricep. We've got a shortened position with the bicep. Here we go into extension of his shoulder. Shoulder, yep. So now he's got shortened tricep, lengthened bicep. All right? If he were to take his hand out in front, in this position right here, so he's going to have a little bit of a shorter bicep. If he were to turn it over, lengthened bicep. All right? It's pretty easy, so let's stick a hand out to me. Stick a hand facing up. If he were to go and just do like a bicep pose, like you're gonna flex, right? So if Jim flexes here, we notice how the bicep gets shorter. Now bring it back out, turn your hand over. Do the same thing, but bring it, yeah. Anybody notice how it's longer here? Boom. It's a pretty simple way. Big rock, little rock. All right, that's just everybody, except not Arkansas. Don't go to Arkansas, it's kind of boring. Okay? So there's where we're gonna go with our shoulder. Any questions on that? Bicep, shoulder. When we look at the forearm, you basically have flexion and extension of your fingers. There's like 40 different muscles that are in your forearm, just like tiny little ones. So we won't go like super deep into that because all they do is either flex, extend, and then rotate humerus, and or not the humerus, but the radius and the ulna. Okay? So, where is it? I'm going to give them a leg up here. So, obviously, everybody's seen a regular curl. Just do a curl for me. Okay? So this is the most basic of movements that we can do for the bicep. Okay? Now, do another one. Notice he moves through supination and pronation there. So he basically starts in a neutral position. When he goes to curl, he changes it. So what's he doing? He's going from a medium position here with the bicep into a shortened position. Now, if we want to, let's just say, start in a medium position, but end in a long position. Where are you going? Oh, yeah. So all he would do is then leave that hand supinated. So go ahead and do a reverse curl. And moving out, okay? So that's just going to start that process. Now, when we look at then how it ties into the shoulder, let's just say we're going to start with our short positions first. So, okay, can I have you stand up? Let's go to the preacher curl here. So, if we want to then put our bicep into a shortened position, we'll just do regular preacher curl. Okay? So notice where his shoulder is. So he's elevated his shoulder, but he's in flexion, right? So he's bringing that shoulder blade up, and the next thing you know, so he's already starting now in a shortened position. He goes through a supinated grip curl. He's staying in a shortened position the whole time. All right, now flip it over and supinate it. Okay? And he's going in a longer position. He can put it in a medium position. Just go hammer. So just straight up. This is what we call a hammer position or a hammer curl. Just like somebody would smash like a nail with a hammer. Okay? Not bad? Good. Okay. Stand up. Relax. Just relax a second. So there's a very, you can put the dumbbell down, and we'll come over here. So then when we look at short position, we can do it there, or we can do it on a cable machine. Okay? I'm going to try this. Let's stick with it down. So all he's going to do here is he's going to step out this way. Great. Face yourself in the mirror. Hand up. And you're just going to leave your shoulder in that position. So notice he's got that shoulder blade elevated. He's in shoulder flexion. A little bit of abduction out to the side. Same thing. Curl. So he's starting in a short position. And he's creating more tension and shortening it even more. Okay? Now in this position, it gets really tricky. Like if you're trying to supinate it, his grip's going to become a factor. And eventually, long term, he's not going to be able to create as much tension on that. Okay? So just relax. So there's our shortened position. The reason this is important, when we look at that shortened position, when you, let's just say, right, so wrestling, right? If he gets in a position where he's got his arm flexed, and somebody sits there and just grabs his fingers and tries to straighten his arm out because he's doing something, all right? It's the weird positions they get into. If he's not strong here, he doesn't have the ability to then move his arm out, right? And be able to bring and control that motion. He's not going to be able to have the most stable shoulder possible, and it's going to open up for shoulder injuries. All right, so when we look at training the arm and strengthening your arm, it's not so much about just having big biceps and looking great. It's about then being able to have a healthy shoulder. Okay? Anybody seen any, kind of like a real world example? It's not sports because it applies to the real world. Anybody ever babysat? Yeah, and you had to like snag the toddler who's walking off the end of the table because he won't obey you? Yeah? It's one of those common things. Bicep tendonitis is actually one of the most common injuries you see in new moms because they're carrying a baby around all the time. right? For some reason, new dads don't get it, probably because they're being neglectful or something. I don't know. We can make those jokes. Oh yeah, mom's like, wow, you went there. Yeah, I went there. Okay? So, we have to start then looking at some of those positions. So here's what I want you to do.